Hey everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. It's me again. I'm Steven. You know that by now. That's John. You ought to know that too. John, it's been a minute since I've seen you, buddy. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, it's been a couple weeks. I was on a nice long vacation, which I desperately needed. So, but it feels weird because it has been a while.
It has. Uh, because yeah, like 3 or 4 weeks anyway. It's been a long. I feel like it's been a long time.
Yeah, because first I went to Maryland first for a couple days. Then I went to Virginia to hang out with some of our friends, and then I went back to Maryland for another week. So,
Yeah, I've been hearing about y'all's vacation. I was just working, but I've been hearing about vacation from like Kate and Laura and you, and haven't heard had the chance for Kelly to tell me much yet. But I just hadn't seen her, but she's in the chat right now. Hi Kelly, love you, buddy. Been a minute. Um, but yeah, it sounds like y'all had a blast.
yeah. Yeah, it was a little bumpy. We had some chaos ensuing, but all in all, it was still a good time.
Nice, nice, nice. Okay,
Yeah.
so ostensibly we're going to talk about the fifth element today. Um, I'm probably going to meander more than usual. It just is what it is. I feel like we have talked about it before, and certainly we really didn't. Like this was the one that was scheduled when I had my sort of like anxiety crisis, and
Yeah.
so it got back burnered, and it was as good a time as any. We needed something to talk about. So yeah, um, I'm going to say right here at the top, and I'm going to mention it again at the mid roll, but for everybody. My intention is to talk about the film Everything Everywhere All at Once next week. It gives you all a week to watch it. You probably have to rent it. John, get it on physical media. You will not regret it. Um,
Well, I don't know if I'll do that, but I'll certainly
just
rent it.
give me 60 seconds. This movie has changed the way I see the world. I think it is a brilliant piece of cinema. I think every aspect that went into making this movie is just about perfect. Um, and it's philosophical in a way like The Matrix is about the nature of existence and all. It's so good, y'all. It is so good. I need to talk about this movie with other smart people because there's also, if you're into symbolism, man, this movie has got layers on layers of symbolism. It's so good. All right, that's it. Let's talk about the fifth element or your vacation, whichever you prefer. Go.
Just that I wish I was still on vacation. But
Oh, that's
aside,
always going to be true.
well, especially for this one, because I think 2 weeks was the longest I've ever been away from home. Honestly, uh, I don't think I've ever taken a 2 week vacation before, so it felt weird coming home. I was like, I mean, I had that feeling that you always have where, you've been on vacation, but it feels like you just left. But this, because it was longer, it felt that feeling of unfamiliar. Uh, I'm getting tongue twisted. And things being unfamiliar, it lasted a little bit longer. And I feel like I'm still not fully back into the swing of
Right.
things.
Right. Like you grow a new normal after a little while.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And then you have to go back to the old normal, which feels weird.
Yeah, but the old normal consists of not having very much shelf space, and I'm having to uh, figure out how that new normal of buying things at used bookstores in Virginia meshes with the old normal. So
Yeah.
if you were to see my room like outside of this camera shot, it's a disaster because I just have not figured out where to put everything yet.
You want to know something funny? So is mine. I'm in the corner of my bedroom with a green screen behind me, and like I am not turning the camera around. Let's just say that.
it was a miracle that I got the stuff home. Actually, my godmother had to lend me a whole other carry-on bag just so I could stuff it
Right.
full of comics that Kelly gave me. So,
Guilty says no Nessie today. No, unfortunately, she works every other Sunday, and this is just her Sunday to work. So it is what it is. She should be back next week for whatever we're doing. I've spoken my mind about what I want to talk about, but that's because that's something I'm actually super excited to talk about, And a lot of it, okay, I've watched a lot of discussion about that movie, and it is very funny, and a lot of people are concentrating on sort of like the funny, but I want to talk about the philosophy and the symbolism. Like it's crazy how good that movie is. It's crazy how good it is. All right, The Fifth Element. We talked about your vacation. We've gone on about the movie I watched recently that I've just been obsessed with since I watched it. I've watched it 3 times, and I'm watching people's video essays. Anyway.
all right, Fifth Element.
But some time ago, a long time ago, a young Stephen watched a movie called The Fifth Element. It came out in 1997, which is the same year my first child was born. My first child, who is 25 years old now. So, yeah, this movie's been around for a long time. I don't think I recognized it for the sort of like, I think the weirdness put me off the first time I watched it. But after a little while, like, the quirkiness of this movie really gives it a charm that you just don't get in most other movies. Would you agree?
Now, yes.
Right.
I would say that I believe, even though the first time I watched it was with you guys for the watch party that we did a ways back, but I do think that I had seen part of the beginning of this movie years ago, and I remember thinking, this is a really weird movie. Like, and in ways that did not appeal to me at the time. I think I was too young to appreciate that movies should try to be different and to have their own unique flavor. And all I recognized was that this is really not like it's. I remember specifically the scene of Bruce Willis at the door with the guy who's trying to hold him up, and
Right.
just the way the guy is acting. It's like, what's wrong with this movie? It's so weird. Just no, let me turn something else on. So, but now I see it and I love it for that quirky sensibility,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me laugh, and I love that this is, aside from the director's other recent film, Valerian, there's no other science fiction movie really like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that because that's something that filmmakers should try and do, to be daring and think outside the box.
Yeah. Go watch that movie that I've been talking about. I'm serious, like everything you just said. But yeah, Luc Besson is sort of like has a certain vision for what he does. And some of it is sort of absurdist and over the top. And he, like, some of the camera work in this movie is really inventive, I think. The sort of like, it feels like I don't know, I can't think of a specific scene. Maybe during Diva Dance. The way the camera works on Mila Jovovich sometimes is just great. That it almost feels like a sped up action shaky cam. Zoom in on, anyway, it's fantastic. Some of the camera work in this movie, and that's just one of the sort of aspects that is the unique fingerprint. Again, it's the awkwardness, it's the camera work, it's the costuming, it's the writing, it's the delivery of Ruby Rod by Chris.
Do you remember what I said when we watched this movie?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. It's been long enough.
And this was before there was Fun had in in January. you know what I'm referring to. But I remember we were watching this, and I said, I imagine this is what it feels like to be high.
Right. Oh yes. Oh yes.
So, but it's funny because now having watched this movie for the third time, it's really funny how you get accustomed to his performance, and like
And that's Ruby Rod.
whereas the first time I felt very uncomfortable watching it, just because of how extreme he is. Now I'm like, yeah, it's like you said, hey, it's Ruby Rod.
He was probably my favorite character in the whole movie. I mean, part of the charm, again, with this film is all the characters are so unique and great, and like Bruce Willis and Mila Jovovich are kind of playing self-inserts for, to some degree for men and women, but like I feel like they're a little less developed character-wise. Bruce Willis is a tough guy.
Well, and I feel like we talked about this before, but Bruce Willis is fulfilling the function of this movie of bringing it down to earth for us as the viewer. Like, he's Bruce Willis, the action hero. He's our way into this story because everything else is so wild. Like, he grounds the movie for viewers coming into it. He's the one sort of what feels like a normal element.
Right. Okay. No, solid. But again, the thing that motivates him, even if he is the everyman, as the self-insert, however you want to put it, the grounding thing, the thing that we as an audience latch onto, we are meant to be him. What is it that motivates him? She's pretty.
Yeah.
But her innocence, like that's what motivates him to begin with. But her innocence and her sort of like positivity do rub off on him throughout the course of the film. And he keeps, like, if she was just pretty, I don't think he goes to Floston Paradise and all that, because he was really not wanting anything to do with it.
Yeah. But yeah, as I've established earlier, and though a good vacation is always nice, if it was an actual vacation instead of a secret mission.
Oh, South London Reseller says, great performances in this film, especially Chris Tucker as Ruby Rod. We just talked about that. You just barely missed it. We will get back to him. I said he's probably my favorite character in the whole film. He's probably my favorite character Chris Tucker's ever played. Because can you imagine showing up to set and like having to film with him?
You know what? And I do actually think that I had seen scenes of him as Ruby Rod in the past. I don't exactly remember when, but I do remember that also feeding my sort of initial reaction to the movie of, oh my God, this movie is on freaking steroids. Can it please just slow down? It's the whole sequence, where we first meet him, where he's on the air, and
again the camera work in that too, with the quick cuts. We have a close up on his face, and then we cut to an angle, and he whips around, and there's his face, and then we cut to another angle, and he whips around, and there's his face, and he's delivering that like opening monologue.
Yeah,
it's great, man. Because you feel like you get whiplash.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what they want. That's what Luc Besson wants us to feel in that moment. This character should give you whiplash when you first meet him.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because I'm trying to think, what year was this?
1997.
1997. So this was about the same time that he did Rush Hour, I guess. And yeah, I remember. That's probably why it sticks out in my head, because it was him, and like he was kind of on top of the world at that point with
Mm-hmm.
the
He's
different
just
stuff he was.
recently done Friday as well.
Yeah, and yeah, but he's just brilliant. And now that I'm more accustomed to the style of the film, like I can just see, like, you know, how he comes into work and just, you know, pulls, you know, something like this character off where it's so energized and so, like, the man is brilliant. He's great. But
Yeah. When Lilu is telling Cornelius about the
oh yeah.
stones and the way they cut back and forth between them and Zorg.
Oh, we haven't even talked about Gary Oldman.
No. Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg. What a great name for a villain, too.
Like, I would really like to listen to some interviews of Gary Oldman describing what his process was
So we're gonna
behind.
put this. Okay, so you're supposed to be really evil, but like think you are divinely inspired, and we're gonna put a plastic thing on your head.
And we want you to speak in, what would you call it, a Southern accent? Or,
Yes, like
yeah.
that affect. And the thing is, he turns it up depending. Like he's always got it, but when he's talking to Cornelius and he's like talking about, oh, and everything's got its place, and this little guy does it. Like I died. Like I died. It's so funny.
It's great. It's
doing
yeah, exactly. But again, like, this is what I'm talking about. Everything in this film, on the face of it, like, if you're just coming to it and you're not prepared for it, it's ridiculous. And the first time I saw Gary Oldman doing the show, I'm like, what the hell is Gary Oldman doing in this? And like that,
he is selling out to his part. Like he is not holding back. He is not rolling his eyes in this movie. Nobody is. And that's part of what I think makes it so good, is that it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But everybody in it is very serious about it because it's happening. It's their lives. It's happening to them.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I say, you know, everything's ridiculous, but it's brilliantly ridiculous. It's just like you say, Stephen. They're like nobody's. They're coming close, but they're not winking at the camera. Like, this is all a joke. Like, it's funny because of how believable everything is, and and so you can laugh at it, but the film isn't laughing at itself either, which is in this case a good thing, because it just works.
It just works. And which is a lot to say for a film that is as ambitious as this one is, that it is as unique visually as it was, especially in the mid-90s, you know? Like, and the thing, by 1997, we had seen Terminator 2, you know? We had seen The Matrix. So our expectations for special effects had grown greatly. And this movie does not have the greatest special effects or creature effects, you know? But almost that feels like it's part of the charm. Like the, oh gosh, not the Mondo Chiwan, the Space Orcs. The Mondo Chiwan.
I don't remember what they're called, but see, I actually love that entirely, because if
I think you're right, Taker. I think that was 1999. Now that you say it, okay, it's fine. I made a mistake. It's not the first time. It's not the last.
Because if this film was made today, those creatures would have been CGI, possibly.
Maybe.
Maybe not if Luc Besson was making the movie.
That's
But
the thing. Like, there's a lot more CGI than there used to be in our action movies, but there are still those filmmakers that want to do it practically in the camera, you know?
yeah.
And
No, and I love that because I was watching a featurette where he said something about that this was a couple years before, what he referenced as digital. I think he meant digital cinematography, which made things more complicated as far as executing the effects, because there's things that you can do when it's digital video that you are more difficult when it's film. But I and you can tell it's like the stuff that is computer graphics. It's like early, it's very early CGI and stuff. But that means that the film also does have to lean more heavily on traditional effects as well. And even if, I guess you could argue that some of it feels a little dated, but that works in its favor. It adds charm to it, and it's just, you look at this and it's unquestionably a 90s science fiction action film, and I love
that. But again, like it works in a way that, and it always is going to come back to the fact that it's as unique as it is. Sean did point out that they are called Mangalores.
Okay.
Yeah, they are. I can't. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you, buddy.
I will admit I'm not yet an expert on the background of the Fifth Element lore.
Yeah, I've probably seen it 15 times, which is so strange because of the way I don't think I necessarily connected with it the first time I watched it,
Mm-hmm.
But had a friend who loved it and got me to sit down and watch it again and was talking about it. And yeah, kind of like the way we talk about stuff now. I think this was just on my living room couch though. And it was pretty rad. It was pretty awesome. And it really changed the way I look at this movie. And I love this movie now.
Yeah, and I actually think that it made a really big impact. That the first time I watched this movie in its entirety, I watched it with you guys for a watch party, because I just think it put me in the right frame of mind for it. And I think you guys also enjoyed some of my reactions as we were going through. But yeah, no, I have quite a fondness for it now, having gone through my third viewing today. Because the second viewing, of course, was when we were originally going to do the stream. So now I've seen it 3 times, and it probably won't be the last.
Right. Yeah, I got you. It's one of those. It's one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is a multi-genre mashup thing, and those are always super hard to pull off because it's a romance between these two. It's an action adventure. It's a comedy. It's science fiction. It's got a little bit of philosophy in it. That's a lot to juggle in a 2-hour movie. Especially when you've got people like Chris Tucker who are chewing up the scenery whenever the camera falls on them.
It's great because on the one end, Chris Tucker, going completely over the top. And then you've got Bilbo Baggins himself, Ian Holm, sort of being our, narrative guide through most of this. And I actually think when we were gonna, I don't remember if it was the watch party or when we were gonna do the stream. I want to say maybe it was the watch party. I think Ian Holm had just passed away, and that just added an extra level of bittersweetness. But it was good to see, to watch something with a performance of his that I hadn't seen before, and
he's great in it too.
He's so good.
Yeah, Father Cornelius. He's just constantly in over his head, but
it's like he has to get on the ship to save her and make sure that things go, and he ends up arrested, and he doesn't really accomplish much.
The other side, though, like he's in over his head, but he is game to, like, he is not backing down. He is gonna go. He's gonna try.
Yeah.
And that's a really endearing quality for him. And he's, you know, he's one of the good guys. One of the good guys in the movie. And the fact is, there's three or four different good guy, quote unquote, factions in this movie who can't agree on crap. Like Corbin Dallas as our hero spends a good bit of the movie at odds with Cornelius, where they're sort of like, Cornelius wants to do this, Corbin wants to do that, and, you know, backs him, hits him on the head with a, you know,
I love that. Then
trophy or a
cut to the hallway. I know, I'm not proud of myself. He's just great.
I have a meat popsicle. Indeed, Ian Holm was a legend.
Yeah, it's funny because the more stuff I see of his from, you know, years and years ago, the more I keep going back to an exchange that I had with my television production teacher in high school. It was when Lord of the Rings was getting ready to come out in theaters, and I had like a behind the scenes paperback book that had, like, you know, blurbs on all the cast members and stuff. And I guess he hadn't been paying very close attention to the production, even though he did, you know, like Lord of the Rings. But I showed it to him, and then he got to the page with Ian Holm as Bilbo, and he chuckled, and he was like, yeah, he just then found the idea of Ian Holm as Bilbo Baggins really amusing because of how, like, perfect it is.
Yeah.
Because he's so small and so fidgety, just like Bilbo. But yeah, it's I was really sad when he passed away, but he left us a remarkable legacy of work.
And for a lot of people, this is their Ian Holm role. You know, it's probably the first thing I ever saw him in. I couldn't swear to that without pulling up his, you know, IMDb page, but
yeah, and I imagine for a lot of people, Alien is what they think of for Ian Holm.
I probably did see him in Alien, but didn't, you know, make that link. Alien is not my movie. This is my movie.
Mm-hmm.
Alien is a good movie, but it's not my movie, you know? This is my movie.
Yeah, well, he gets me on here with Laura and Carol. We'll talk about how Alien is definitely our movie.
Yeah, and kudos to you, but
yeah,
like, I think you've already talked about both of those movies.
Oh yeah,
somewhere on the
and actually, before she pops out of nowhere and corrects me, I think Laura is much more of a fan of Aliens.
Okay. She likes multiples, not just the one.
But yeah, anyway, so okay, we were talking. I was wondering how the heck did we get on? We were talking about Ian Holm. Fifth Element. Let's focus on.
Reminds me of Blade Runner, especially with the flying cars. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there aren't that many sci-fi movies that aren't influenced by Blade Runner.
Especially when you get that sort of like hyper urbanized.
Yeah.
That because cyberpunk being sort of like the generic catch-all term for that feel. Because I believe Blade Runner is probably one of the earliest cyberpunk films.
But this movie definitely establishes, though, its own like vibe almost immediately in the beginning of the film when you get these big lumbering, machines just walking through ancient Egypt, or not quite not quite ancient Egypt, but early 20th century Egypt.
Yeah.
Which of course, we have to mention Aziz Light.
Aziz Light. Fun fact, I'm quite good friends with the folks over there at History of Westeros. And I first met them in 2017, so 5 years ago, at the very first ever Con of Thrones. And the first thing I ever said to him was, Aziz Light. I don't know why. No, Aziz is not in the chat, but he should be.
Did he know what you were talking about?
I don't know.
But I think they made that joke when we were going to do the stream before. I feel like I was watching the tail end of History of Westeros, and I think he made reference to that joke, and like Aziz Light, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. So if he didn't get the reference, before, I'm guessing he does now. But yeah, no, I think you guys kept saying that before I watched the movie. I was like, what the hell are you on about?
Right. But the first words Aziz ever heard me speak to him were Aziz Light. Let's just hang out in that scene for a minute because it's fantastic and barely links to the rest of the movie. Luke Perry's in it, Yeah,
it's like its own little mini movie.
It really is.
Yeah, it's so funny because you see.
Oh, nice. He quoted it when he was pitching my stream today, so he knows.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Baker.
Yeah, because like Luke Perry even gets he's in the opening credits, with the other leading stars. It's like he's not even like the most memorable character in that scene.
Like, I would argue that the Doctor is the most memorable character in that scene. Yeah. Are you German? Do you know in Germany he asks, "Are you from Earth?" But in everywhere else, it's like, "Are you German?" Which is hilarious, given it's like 1930 something, and yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, no, but I love that. I love that you've got, they're in Egypt. It's like a hole and burial. It feels very earthbound, like something we recognize from like, some kind of historical movie or something. And then in come these alien robots that, we've never seen anything like before. And I just think that's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it also just, if it was more modern, you'd have electric lamps in there. It does a really great job at dating that scene so that you can jump forward from that. The design of the Mondoshawan is brilliant because it's so terrible. Like, I'm like, how did Mother Nature come up with this?
Well, it's funny because when I first saw the scene, I don't know how many people would get this, but I instantly thought in my head, wheat mini bond. That's from Transformers, the animated movie, which you got these big lumbering alien, Transformers basically at about halfway through the movie, and that's what it reminded me of. So, but yeah, no, I think it's brilliant because it's so. I mean, you said terrible, but the fact that they're so lumbering, it's like you expect the, like alien robots to be sort of like slick.
At least as agile as me.
Yeah. It's like you can't even run to get out of the out the door before, But
Taker, that's perfect. He and his
yeah,
friend call them the big armadillo guys. Perfect.
yeah. But and then like, but we normally expect like we see in movies, you know, that are sort of science fiction and they set up, you know, something in the past. We then figure that we're going to jump forward to the present and we're going to be like dealing with that. But no, they're coming back in 300 years, and in 300 years it's the future, and it's, you know, it's so
Yeah.
it's
So
so
all those characters, Aziz, the Doctor, Luke Perry, forget about them. They don't matter anymore past that particular scene.
yeah. And yeah, and then we jump into the future, and I always remember like the first scene in the future because it's got the one guy from X-Files as the general who, you know, who his answer to everything is just keep firing bigger and bigger weapons. That's like such a summation of like what's wrong with, you know, a large portion of our culture. It's like we can't conceive of the fact that, you know, firing bigger and better missiles and
Again,
you know, weapons won't work.
That's where what I was talking about earlier, where this movie has something to say philosophically. Like,
Yeah.
violence is not the answer. Yeah, she can fight and she's willing to fight, but like her big breaking point in the sort of emotional climax of the movie is when she learns what war is. That's what breaks her. And sort of like I hate the love conquers all trope, but it's done differently here and really sincerely, and it just, I don't know, it still works. You know, the fact that he's like, you know, him professing his love is what changes it. And I hate that there's this the old trope in storytelling where you know what she really wants is his love, but it's bigger than that, because it's not lack of love that broke her. It's the idea of how inhumane we are to each other. And you're right, we get that first scene, but the very next scene basically is there's this thing in space, we don't know what it is, time to blow it up.
Yeah, it even says I prefer to shoot first, ask questions later.
Christina asks, has anyone else heard Mila Jovovich's music album? I have not. I'm sorry. I expect it's probably adequate music, but nothing spectacular. That would be my guess. What about you, John? You ever heard Mila Jovovich's music?
I have not. This does not surprise anybody.
Yeah.
Just, but no, I think it works because, I mean, I could certainly argue that it would be nice to have a bit more development of the love story, but it does work because it's, as you've been saying, it's the contrast to, you know, to violence. It's, you know, you have violence on the one hand, and then you can talk about, yeah, and we're talking about romantic love, but love itself is the inverse of that. And so like intellectually I quite like it, but I wouldn't mind if the movie was a little bit longer to flesh out their, you know, their romantic love. And, you know, but I still think the movie works very well.
Bon says he hasn't heard her album, but he's heard her on Songs by Pucifer, which, okay, that's probably my third favorite Maynard James Keenan band behind A Perfect Circle and Tool, but like still good. And if Maynard James Keenan, who is a musical genius, is going to work with her, maybe she does got something. And Christine says there are a couple of good songs on there, so maybe I'll check it out. It's always nice to, maybe she's got chops. Christopher Lee did how many heavy metal albums?
Which I love. I mean, I haven't actually heard them. I mean, I love the fact that he did them.
Right. Like the idea of him doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. But and of course the reason why I said nobody is surprised that I haven't heard them is because if it wasn't on the soundtrack album, it's unlikely.
Right.
Because pretty much 99% of the music I know of comes from soundtrack albums, and I mean score albums, not soundtrack songs.
Right.
Which since we're talking about music, like we can't not talk about.
Go off, buddy.
Well, no, I mean we both talked about and not the score itself, but like the big musical number of the film.
Oh, Diva Dance.
Yeah,
a song that is basically impossible for human vocal cords to achieve. That fast run in the right before the I think it might almost be physically impossible for a person's vocal cords to move quickly enough to go back and forth between those notes. It's crazy.
I just loved it because it starts off very much like music that I would normally gravitate towards, and it lulls you into this sort of serene feeling, and then it kicks it up a notch. Yeah, but it's still beautiful. And just the way it's cut together with Lilu fighting and doing all that, it's just brilliantly executed. And again, on that featurette I was watching with the director's interview, he talks about apparently at that point in the movie, a portion of the audience stands up and walks out because it's too much weird for them.
Yeah.
But like by that point in the movie, like I figure if you haven't given yourself over to what this movie is, then what are you still doing there anyway?
Okay, hold on a second. Trish, go take care of your dog. I'm sorry he's not feeling well. Be safe. Good luck. Keep us in the loop.
Yeah, we're all sending good vibes.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Where were we? We were talking about the music. I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
But no, other than like the song itself, the score is done by God, I'm trying to remember his name. I think Arch-Maester, who does a lot of music for Luc Besson's films. He also did the score for the James Bond movie GoldenEye. Okay. I'll say like a lot of his music sounds very similar. He's definitely got a distinctive style. It's much more electronic, and you can even hear like there's like a boom boom, like a sort of weird electronic beat that you could pull out of this and put it in GoldenEye and you wouldn't know that anything was changed out. But it works. Like it definitely works for the film. But the big music standout point is the singing. So
yeah. And you're right. I can see where that could be the point where people are like, no. But like everything after that, when the Mangalores show up and start shooting up the place, and that's like really the start of Act 3, isn't it?
Yeah, it's well, and it's funny because that is the most
Act 2, maybe.
That is the most like traditional 90s action movie that the film, that the film is. So it's like for anybody who leaves at that point in the movie, it's like if you just stayed for a couple more minutes, you get the stuff that that you want. So,
but the first two acts, like, there's no action without drama, right? Like you have to care about the people in the scene in order for an action scene to carry emotional weight. And you really do need those first two acts of this movie, not only to establish the conflict, but to make us care about the characters therein. It's kind of storytelling 101. Make you care, put them through the ringer, you know? Yeah, like, and it is an action movie, but not during the diva dance.
Well, it kind of is.
Oh yeah, actually it kind of is too. But you got to get to the hip hop dance track part of it.
Yeah. But I like, I think that is, I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything out of line to say that's probably the highlight of the movie, just because of the way it's executed. It's like, because all throughout the first part of that song, there's this buildup where things are kind of moving into place, and you're cutting to different shots of, you know, and people moving around, just so that when that beat kicks in, it can, you know, the whole thing can turn and it becomes an action sequence. But there's lots of beautiful buildup in that scene. I just, yeah, it's utterly fantastic the way they pull that off.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like replaying it in my head. I did not get a chance to rewatch.
Oh wow.
So I've seen the movie like 20 times, you know, so I can practically just quote it start to finish anyway.
Okay.
Like, you wouldn't, if we needed to start talking about Lord of the Rings right now, maybe that's not the best example because you've seen that movie 100 times.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I could do a stream without watching it again, but I will never, ever pass up an opportunity to watch it again.
If the crunch made it so that you couldn't do it, like, you wouldn't need to.
Yeah, although I would probably at least, like, you know, a few minutes beforehand, like, turn on some Howard Shore music,
right?
to get me in the zone.
Right, like your pump up jam.
Yeah.
Into the West.
Or Concerning Hobbits always works really well.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know any songs from this movie except Diva Dance.
Yeah, no, because it's not really
effective where they, you know.
It's an effective score, but it's not the type where I would, you know, I don't think I would go to listen to the score album on its own, like separate from the movie.
Right.
It definitely works for it, but it's not the kind of thing where I'm like, I got to go back and listen to the score from this scene. But I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I'm sure there are some Fifth Element fans out there who are like, hey, screw you, John. I own the soundtrack album, and I love to listen to it.
And you know, good for them. Everybody's got different taste, you know.
We've done a Lord of the Rings watch party.
We have more than once, actually.
But, you know, when December rolls around, who's to say we won't do it again?
Right. Hey, this coming December, retro review of the Two Towers.
That's right. Oh, Jesus.
John, it's never going to stop. Get used to it. And you know what? I'll save it for the mid-roll. We're getting close anyway.
Yeah, but I will say, like, I still have, like, you know, we got the 20th anniversary of Two Towers this year, and then I still have to go through this again next year when Return of the King celebrates its 20th. It's a drawn-out torture.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to the movie.
Yeah, back to the movie. Okay, so can we zero in on Zorg / Gary Oldman?
Sure.
At least for a bit. Zorg is such an interesting symbol in this movie because he is, at the beginning of the movie, it's the military wants to attack. but who is supplying the military? Follow the dollar. Who's benefiting? And even when he gets on the phone with the big entity and he's got motor oil dripping down his face or whatever, he's like, my costs have tripled. And the entity, the evil, whatever, responds with, money, price doesn't matter, cost doesn't matter. So he is the shameless capitalist in this scenario. I don't think this movie is an indictment of capitalism per se, but it is an indictment of that sort of like that ruthless CEO that will do anything for profit. Hello, Asha, not Yara. I don't know if I've seen you in the chat before. I know you from Twitter, though. Hi. Nice to see you.
Hello.
You may have been in the chat before. I can't remember. But welcome. We're just talking about Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg at the moment.
I'm never not going to laugh at that.
It's a great name, man. It's a great name for a villain.
But but an interesting, you mentioned whatever's dripping down his head, you also see dripping down the general's head in that first scene, and I was like, what is that? It looks too dark to be blood. So
hi, Chris. Thanks for joining us late. If better late than never. We love you.
Oh, how could you?
No, be nice. Be nice. We've all done it.
Oh no! What are you talking about? I certainly have never overslept and come into a stream halfway through. Never. But yeah, so I didn't know what was up with that because it looked like some very, dark, thick substance, which made me think, are some of these humans not quite human?
I think maybe it is a mark of the great evil,
Mm-hmm.
As in the general who just keeps shooting no matter what, and the industrialist who just wants to profit off of war. Like his speech to Cornelius says it all, where he knocks the glass off the thing. He's like, "Oh look, now this thing's got a thing to do, and then that thing's got to maintain that thing," but the flaw, at least from most of our point of view, is that it begins with destroying something first.
Yeah, which I love when villains get these kind of monologues where if you listen to them for too long, they'll start to make sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
I won't dwell on this, but but there's a very similar scene in Dark Crystal Age of Resistance in episode 5 when Chamberlain starts to talk to Rian about trying to talk him into things. See, what we're doing actually is not so bad. We're preventing war. And like the longer he talks, the more in some twisted way he starts to make sense.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the root of it, it's like, no, you're right. Evil and you're twisted and just.
Well, or it makes me also think of like Miller in The Expanse. They capture that scientist and the scientist starts explaining himself and he starts to make a lot of sense. So Miller shoots him and he's like, I didn't shoot him because he was crazy. I shot him because he was starting to make too much sense. Yeah. It's kind of a good, I like it. I like it too.
Yeah. Oh God. Now you just reminded me of how great The Expanse is.
It's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Expanse, pretty good. Oh, does John like Dark Crystal? I was just about to collect that up. I was just about to do it.
Maybe a little bit. But no, like this, I get what you're saying. Like it's a fantastic speech, and but at the root of it is you have to like you're committing evil.
Right.
You're
It
doing
begins
bad
with,
things.
I destroy a thing. Now all this stuff has purpose. But it's only has purpose because you destroyed something. Again, it's a circular logic, but he's there to make dollars off the cleanup, and dollars off of the people who want to break the thing to begin with. He's the war industrialist, yeah.
And I love the fact that, like, here's this villain. He's scheming. He's got plots, or as Tyrion would say, plots and scheming are the same thing. But like, and I love the fact that while he's in the middle of doing all this, he just starts to choke on a cherry, and it's just so random. Like, and
best part of that scene, he's banging different things on the desk, and it opens up, and he's got some weird elephant dog thing that lives inside his desk,
which is not explained. It's like it's just there.
It's just there. It's just some weird alien animal, and it's super cute too, though. Like,
it's like, is that somehow supposed to help him with the choking? I don't know. Like, it's just brilliant. I just keep talking about how I love this or that, but I love things that are just there to be, to make you question, like, wait, what? And there's no real explanation.
We're in a weird, wacky sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
This movie won't let you forget.
And then again, talking about Ian Holm's wonderful performance, how like cool and relaxed he is in this moment, and he makes his point before he saves him.
You're a monster.
So great.
I know.
Yeah, like everything that Zord does in this movie is so great. Just the way, like, he's talking about why he likes murderers, and he's like, for instance, a murderer might question what the little red dot on the bottom of the gun is. And then they press it, and then he's just standing there with, a cigarette while the building explodes in the background.
Yep. Him showing off the gun to the Mangalores. Like, just the homing button, turn around, and they're like, oh.
Sorry, I meant a like perfect. Like, that was a very bad symbol to make. That the AOK symbol has a different connotation now than it did years back. I apologize for that. Nobody screenshot that, please. Right. But no, it's like an absolutely brilliant just moment, and again, like,
no, sorry, my favorite. Just, I was trying to set that up. I was just trying to get out my favorite. He's so good. Like, Gary Oldman is one of those, just everything he touches turns to gold. Somebody was calling him a chameleon earlier, and I don't disagree. Like, he's fantastic in everything I've ever seen him in.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we do a mid-roll? Or
yeah, let's do it.
Thought? Okay, great. Mid-roll. This is, please like, subscribe. If you're watching this later, comment. Keep the conversation going. I will literally respond to every comment I ever get. It might just be too hearted to let you know if it doesn't require a response. But yeah, keep the conversation going down there. We got patrons, and they're awesome people. Some of them are in the chat right now. We love you guys. Our Patreon High Council consists of Ridiculous Ed Tollett, a.k.a. Sean, who was at least in the chat earlier. He might not be at the moment, but he was earlier. As well as Lord John Bronsteen the Wise. Love you. There's one of our patrons coming in late right now. The High Council is supported by the nobility of the realm, including the Cloaked One of the Underworld, Ryan Stavka, the Russian Quartermaster, Reflective Rambling, Arch-Maester Emma, Kate, Mistress of the House of Books, Jared Kozal, Doctor of Dragons, Lady Maura Lee of Starfall, and Lady Rita, the Unbound. Thank you, patrons. We love you. If you would like to become a patron, there's a link down in the description, as well as like links to my Twitter, John's Twitter, John's other YouTube channel, which still exists.
Yeah, which I'm actually, I think I am going to start back up soon. So, because
Nice.
I've missed doing it. So yeah, that means I'll be getting in touch with Kelly about 24 minutes before the stream starts.
Cool. Okay, so this is the part where we would normally talk about what we're got coming up next. Kelly said this. Mid-roll, you should ask if anyone wants to come on and talk about everything everywhere all at once. So, this is the mid-roll. Would anyone like to come on and talk about everything everywhere all at once? Because that movie, John, I knew after I watched it, it was a top 5 all-time film for me. And it continues to climb. Like
I just hate hearing that, because that always
look, everybody's tastes are different.
So I know, but it always builds up expectations when you hear something like that, and then it's
do it anyway.
Okay.
Do it for me, buddy. Do it.
Well, at least I can guarantee it'll. That's one about like multiverse and stuff, right?
Yes. Yes.
So as I was going to say, I'm sure it'll be the best movie about a multiverse that I'll have seen this year.
That is probably accurate, because I have seen another one and it wasn't that good. So I don't even think the bar is that high. But I'm not here to crap on the MCU from a great height, but maybe from pretty close to ground level. I haven't even seen Thor yet.
That doesn't pertain to the multiverse anyway. But that's actually interesting, because I feel like I probably liked Doctor Strange more than you based on that.
Yeah, I thought it was not very good.
Oh, I thought it was one of the better ones.
Okay. Well, that's just on brand for us to not necessarily.
It really is. It's also on brand for me to be contrarian where the MCU is concerned.
Right. I don't think you're going to disagree with me. I actually think this is the perfect movie to be talking about in context of what we're talking about today anyway, because so much of what makes the Fifth Element great makes everything everywhere all at once great.
Okay.
I don't want to hype it up any. Okay. Danny watched this a couple of days ago. We had a short chat about it after he watched it. And he says, as highly as Steven is recommending this movie, I am still underselling it. It is, I just, it's one of those that I've watched it 3 times in a week. I don't go back and watch a movie twice in a year. And I'm watching video essays and I'm writing down notes about my own thoughts. It is so good. It is so good. So that's what we're doing, I think, just because there you go. Agreed. It was a phenomenal movie. I will probably grab Danny or William and force them to come on if you really just don't want to do it, John. But this is one of those, I haven't needed to talk about a movie this bad in a long, long time. Long time. After that, who knows? We do have shows coming up that we will probably be covering.
I'm finally working my way through season 3 of the Umbrella Academy.
It's quite good.
I'm through the first 3 episodes so far, and I'm loving it. So
looks like we've got I've got a guest already, and it could just be me, William, if nobody else wants to join. It's so good. I need to talk about it.
Well, we'll see. I'll give it a shot. And
yeah. Anyway, After that, I'm not sure that there's a Lord of the Rings show coming. There's House of the Dragon. Not sure what else. Is there another Star Wars something coming soon? Ahsoka?
Yeah. No, we got
Andor.
Andor coming up, and then we still actually have to do a Bad Batch stream because the second season is starting in September.
Okay, I need to watch Bad Batch. Okay, so that's all. That's a few things that we can talk about coming up, because next month is when Lord of the Rings drops, right? Second Age thing, is that?
No, next month is House of the Dragon.
Okay, Hot D first, then Lord of the Rings.
I don't know what that first thing was, but yeah.
Hot D. I'll tell you when you're older.
But
September 2nd for Rings of Power.
And speaking of Lord of the Rings, you'll know that I
have her own show. She does. It's in production.
I also recently got some new physical media of these are the books on tape read by Mr. Andy Serkis.
Book on tape? It's not tapes, is it?
Okay, not tape. CDs.
Okay. But like
audio book
on tape, but like
audio book.
CD audio book. I got you.
But I highly recommend no. Never.
Always.
For those of you who have not gotten a chance to listen to Andy Serkis's version of the Lord of the Rings audiobooks, I highly recommend them. They're fantastic. But no, I will never recognize that other thing. Okay.
What else do we need to talk about? Oh yeah, I remember. If you want to join our Slack group, just send me an email to we3dragons@gmail.com. The email address is on your screen right now, we3dragons@gmail.com. And I'll leave it up for a minute. And we'll get you in there. It's basically like what we do now. We just keep the conversation going all week, and we organize watch parties. We have a general hangout. We have a channel where we coordinate Zoom hangouts. We organize Dungeons and Dragons. What else do we do? Tonight, some of us are going to play Goose Goose Duck in about an hour after this stream ends. Get in there. Hang out with us. All these people that are in the chat that you see every week are in there, and it's like it's our friend group. Come join our friend group. It's rad. Don't be an asshole. What else, John? What else needs to fit here in the mid-roll?
Just as far as things that will be coming up on John Webster Film once I get moving again, I've talked to Blue Lemon about doing a stream on the film The Northman, which we both loved. Kelly and I have talked about a Daredevil stream, but I won't put it. I won't put her under any pressure. Whenever she's ready for that, we'll do that. And some other stuff I have ideas for. So look for the return of John Webster Film in the near future.
In the near future, yep. And you've got 1 week to watch Everything Everywhere All at Once, and join us next week. I cannot wait for that. Like, I have not been this excited for anything we've done on the show in a long, long time. What do you need to watch? Daredevil? Have you seen it, Kelly?
Yes, of course.
I know she has. I'm trolling my friend. Okay, so let's kind of move back to the fifth element.
Okay.
The fifth element is, what is the fifth element, John?
It's
air, it's fire, it's water. What's the fifth one?
Perfect.
Perfect?
Yeah.
So perfect is the fifth element? Not because there's a couple of different interpretations that I've seen people reach. One is life. One is love. I've never heard perfect before.
Well, no, that's what's said in the over and over.
He is perfect, is what, Yeah, John, you're not wrong, apparently. apparently.
I was just going off of the movies.
Spirit, yeah, I've heard that as well. Heart, spirit, and like it's very hot naked woman. Yeah, Kelly, now we're talking. Look, she was wearing clothes when she activated, or yeah, heart, just like Captain Planet. Exactly. And she is our hero. Gonna bring the evil ball of death down to zero. Yeah, I remember that show. You know, this whole time I've been sitting here too, between Bruce Willis and Mila Jovovich, and I just keep feeling like they saw me from across the room and they liked my vibe. You know, and I'm like, okay. Anyway, does anybody else been getting that this whole time? That's what I've been getting.
No, all I've been getting is that I have my boring bedroom background, and
The green screen. This green screen cost me $22. Come on now. All right, so should we talk about the actual movie instead of whatever? I'm sorry. I told you it was going to meander today. I told you it was going to wobble all over the place.
Well, that's what we do. Well, no, were we done talking about...
Hold on. Hi, Wheezy. I'm glad you made it. Again, better late than never for all of our lovely regulars. I'm glad you are enjoying your lighthearted Chinese series. I will say we just finished the mid-roll. Watch Everything Everywhere All at Once if you can, Wheezy. That's what we're talking about next week. It's probably only available to rent or might be in a theater near you still. But god dang, that movie is fantastic. But I'm glad you're here. Love you. All right. So I think, like, I'm not even sure what the fifth element is in the context of the film, but it is some sort of like positive life force type thing. I've heard heart, I've heard spirit, love, life, all of those things kind of fit.
Yeah, I did. It did occur to me in that final scene that that the fifth element was supposed to represent love. Like, that felt like sort of the message, but you could also, I like the idea that it's heart, which is... What are you doing, Steve?
Trying to hold the multipass.
Trying to talk, and then I'm just distracted by whatever.
I got it. Looks like I'm holding it. All right. People keep bringing up the multipass in my background, and I'm just playing. I'm just over here playing.
She knows it's a multipass.
Yeah, yeah, she knows it's a multipass.
It's like, I don't know what what Corbin was trying to be in that moment, but convincing I did not find. That poor woman is probably like, whatever, just go. I'm done with this.
And like, it's subtle world building, but like, look at this piles of garbage behind them. What does that say about consumerism?
Yeah, it's like
that's part of what this movie is doing.
Again, like, there's stuff in this movie that is not like, it's not integral to the plot, but it's there, as you say, for world building. And she's like, sorry about, the mess or whatever. And, the other guy is, what? And, she points to over there, but it has nothing to do with anything story related. So, but yeah, no, I think it's great. Not enough like movies do that. Everything is always plot, which, it's important to keep your story moving, but world building is good. To have stuff that's just about adding character to the world that your story is set in. which is, I always find a way to bring things back to Lord of the Rings, but that's always what I love about the extended cuts over the original theatrical versions is that I would say that the theatrical versions of those movies, um, is telling a story. It's just the story, but the extended cuts are telling it's giving you Tolkien's world in which a story takes place, and
For sure.
I find that invaluable. To make sure that the world that you've created feels lived in and feels like there's stories that are beyond just the story that you're telling.
Sorry. It's hot here. It is currently 105 degrees. My air conditioner cannot quite keep up with that, so
Yeah.
I'm getting my hair off my neck. Maybe I should do pigtails, huh? It'd be super cute.
That's all right. We like to think that people come to hear us talk about a topic, but really, Stephen, they're just here for your hair.
For my hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, it's hard for me personally, but.
Oh, but John, look at that beard.
Yeah.
I'm Team Beard as well, please, today with you.
I know. I almost said, I came close to pissing people off today, but then I was like, oh, no, just leave it for them today. They'll be appreciative.
Yeah.
So now we're veering off again.
Now, like I warned you guys. I warned you. That's where my head's at today. I'm starting a job at a brand new company tomorrow, and it's supposed to be 109 degrees. So wish me luck. But yeah, we haven't really talked much about the performance delivered by either Milla Jovovich or Bruce Willis. We talked a good bit about Ian Holm. We talked a little bit about Chris Tucker.
And then Gary Oldman, to be honest, Gary
Oldman.
There's still so much to talk about for Gary Oldman, but it, it's so easy to gravitate towards, him and Chris Tucker as well. But yeah, we did talk a little bit about Bruce Willis. So let's go ahead and devote some time to Milla, because was this her first role? Or
I don't think so, but it was a very early role. It's the first thing I remember seeing her in.
It's funny because I've known of her for years. I don't know that I've ever, before this movie, that I've ever actually watched anything.
She was in Dazed and Confused before this.
Yeah, the things that I remember she was in, but I haven't actually seen them. Obviously I know she was, in all the Resident Evil movies. She was in the Messenger, which was the movie about Joan of Arc. But it's weird. I've gone all these years without actually, I think, seeing her in anything, and until this movie. But no, she's great. I just love it because, part of the movie she's not even speaking any English, so it's all very, it's what she's conveying with her eyes and her expressiveness. But I love that moment in the cab where she's just, sounding out, please help. And, it's something so simple, but it's the way she delivers it. And then, of course, and Dallas is like, oh, damn it. And,
yeah.
And because, before that, he's prepared to just say, I can't afford to get into any trouble. It's not my problem. But I think it's her innocence in that moment. And
that's a good point, because I said something not that earlier about the only thing motivating him is her being pretty, but that's not really true. You're right. He isn't motivated until she really asks, "Please help me."
Yeah.
But like, I think she does great in this movie. I don't think she's necessarily a great actress. I don't think she's bad. She's acceptable level of quality. She's a better actress than I am, or actor than I am. I think she's fine. She's not Gary Oldman. She's not Ian Holm.
Well, very few
like
are,
that's a pretty
definitely.
high bar. But I think
for being
for this movie, she is right for it because
Yeah.
she has that innocence that she can convey, and she is not an action superstar, but she can definitely do action. She has been much of her career is based on those Resident Evil films, and while I've seen a few of them, and I don't think they're anything to write home about. The action is not the problem in those films.
Mm-hmm.
She can definitely pull that off.
Well, and she does fantastic with the action in this movie. That's for sure. I mean, I just love all those. We talked earlier about the sort of opera singing moment of the movie and the way it's intercut with her fighting. And I love the moment where she's like concerned with the alien in front of her, and then there's one in back of her, and you think that maybe she doesn't see him, but no, she knows exactly where he is and takes care of him. Like, that's great.
She even does like this cartoon Three Stooges whoop, 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 thing to him right before, and I'm just like, what is happening? At least the first time I saw it. But we said this early on in the stream, and you can't overstate it. This movie's unique sense of self and unique sense of humor really sells it. It's the script is great, the visuals are great, the directing is great, but I still think the soul of this film is in those moments where everything is ridiculous. The people in the story, it's their life, though. They're not, as you said, winking at the camera or anything. But she still does the whoop, 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 whoop thing to the one Mangalore's face, and that is, to me, the perfect. But she's serious when she's doing it, and it's a combat maneuver that works because, of course, it does in this movie. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But what you're talking about the sincerity of what's at the heart of the movie, I think everything hinges on those moments that you do get between her and Bruce Willis. And there's, whether, I said I could have used a little bit more development, but when they are sharing the screen together, there's a seriousness and about their exchanges, and you get the heart of the movie in those moments. And that's what sells the rest of the ridiculousness, because at the core of it, you got characters who feel real and grounded.
Because they live there.
Yeah.
And Star Wars did this well, and you can see some fingerprints from Star Wars on this movie. Not necessarily in the narrative, but in some of the camera work and what have you. But Star Wars plopped us down in the middle of a sci-fi world and just didn't explain everything. Everything's explained now, 40 odd years later, because that franchises continue to draw everything out of every detail it can. But when in 1977 you're just plopped into this world, nobody knew who Dengar was, or I guess it didn't even exist until Empire Strikes Back. But yeah, all of these, like, how did this society rise? You hear things like Clone Wars. We know all about the Clone Wars now, but for most of my life, I didn't know what a Clone War was.
Yeah, And we even talked a little bit about this on our canon stream, which was that, when I was growing up, my mental image of what the Clone Wars was completely different from, what it ended up being in the prequels and later storytelling. And that's the thing, when you're plopped into the middle of something, your imagination can run wild. And that's what, but you also have to play catch up on your own. And that's what you kind of have to do with this movie as well, where there's lots of things that aren't explained. And that's part of the joy of it.
Mm-hmm. Is that it just, and that makes it feel like a world that is unique unto itself.
Yeah.
Inspiration doesn't always take the form of transfer or copying. When it's best, it's when it involves the flavor of what's being beloved, right? And Alex points out that the movie talks about so much, like we said, the state of humanity, as well as how super technologically advanced alien race started a religion as well. They created a huge weapon, and the only one who is either pure of heart or one who destroys all can activate it, right? That's weird and wild. Why would you do that? But like, okay, great. I'm just glad that we won, that life won, because it did seem like, yeah, okay, it's going to destroy Earth, but then everything else too.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this when the movie ended. Like, I think there's lots of.
Hey, give me 30 seconds. I'm going to be right back.
Okay.
Keep talking.
All right. Yeah, I'm just. Oh, you're not Nessie. So yeah, I'm just talking on my own. But
I'm still trying to fix this thing here. Okay. I'm out of beverage and I need something to drink pretty bad.
Okay.
So just share a thought. I'll be right back.
All right. Okay, here's a thought. I'm sharing it with all of you. Now you have to guess what it is. No. How are you guys doing? I missed you guys. I think I missed out on the stream for 2 weeks, and I've already been missing it terribly. So I'm glad to be back and hanging with you guys. Hope you're doing good.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I just had to run to the fridge and back.
You were right, Cassie. Oh. It's music.
I keep dancing on my own. Yeah. Good song. Robin? Is that right? Glenn Thrasher says, so glad we're doing this movie. It's been a favorite of theirs, and no one they know ever talks about it. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that 25 years later, I still want to talk about it. And John, I don't know that you were here at the beginning, Glenn, but John saw this movie for the first time this year. No, maybe late last year.
I think it was last year.
Now we're talking about that song I was singing a moment ago. Sorry, y'all. Okay, but let's focus on the movie. We got about a half hour left in the stream. Why is my eye misbehaving? I've had allergies, so I've had itchy eyes for a couple of weeks now. Anyway, John, what else have we not said about this movie? We talked about Mila a little bit. Like okay. I said, I do not think she is a great actress, but I think she is great in this.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough of her work to judge, but okay. but I thought she was good in this.
Yeah,
it was a good fit, and I think that I think she fits in well. Like, she stands her ground with the actors that she's around, and maybe that's the maybe it's a good match for the actress in the part. I don't know. Like I said, I would have to see more of her work to judge otherwise. But yeah, I think she's really good, and I think that she has great comic timing when she's in scenes with both Bruce Willis and Ian Holm.
Mm-hmm.
Like they really worked well, off of each other. And like I said, there's that hallway scene where after Ian Holm knocks out Bruce Willis, and he's like, "I'm not proud of myself." They're sort of bickering back and forth as they leave.
Right.
I thought stuff like that worked really well.
Yeah, I really love Cornelius's sidekick guy, David. Somebody said something about him earlier about how that actor plays that character is so jumpy. Like, as much as Cornelius is in over his head, David doesn't have the slightest clue.
I just love the fact that it's like,
I didn't know what to do, Father. I thought he was going to kill me.
David screws up, and then Cornelius is like, something I have to do myself, and as if he's going to do that much better. He does a little bit better, but he's still in over his head. But no, but that said, they all working together, in the end, it takes them all, and even David has his part to play. He goes to Egypt, and Ruby has his part to play.
Yeah, like without Dave, we'll get back to Ruby. But without David, without an exasperated sigh in the right moment, the universe doesn't get saved.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, you said Ruby Rod again. I love that character so much. My favorite, like, as much as I love Zorg, he's probably number 2. Ruby
They're
Rod,
really. I'm sorry.
Ruby for me.
I'm sorry to simplify this down so much, but to me, there is nothing funnier than Chris Tucker screaming.
Yeah, that high pitch. I can't do it. I don't have the voice for it. I have
that's
like practically like shrieking even. Kobe, this is me, Kobe. I don't feel good about this, Kobe. Where he's holding a gun to the Mondachi one's head and then accidentally blows a hole through his head.
You think he's gonna be all right?
Oh, this movie makes you laugh. It makes you feel like it's got adrenaline pumping action when it needs it. Again, there's a reason I think it could have been an unmitigated disaster.
Oh yeah,
aligned with it, and it just works. It just works.
Well, that's what I said earlier. That there's almost everything in this movie is ridiculous, and it's but in lesser hands, it would have been, as you said, a disaster.
I've also heard that part was written with Prince in mind to play the role of Ruby Rod, but Prince passed on it. But which is, hey, it's Hollywood, it's show business. People, you can say when you get to be Prince, you can say no to stuff. Chris Tucker probably could have said no to this, but I guess he saw something in it because it's such a different character from what he played before on, say, Rush Hour or Friday. It really does show a different side to his sort of acting.
Well, I'd actually say that, in my opinion, this taps into a lot of what he was doing in Rush Hour.
It does, but the fact that it's over the top, that it's not the action hero role. He's not playing. He's as in over his. Everybody in this movie is in over their head except these two.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And you're right. It's definitely a Chris Tucker-esque part, but it is different than what I had seen from him before. Different enough.
Yeah, and I just keep going back to my initial reaction to this was I was like, it's too much. It's too much, you know. But then once I was, I gave the whole movie a chance and watched it with you guys. Even then, I was like,
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's not too much, but it is a lot.
Yeah, but it's great. And somebody made the comment that it's just enough of him because there's a degree. Right, there's a moment in which like a character like that can be too much for a movie. Like a lot of comedy is like that. You have to know what the right amount is, and then pull back.
Even like to that last scene with him where they're in the temple and they finally win, and I think it's David goes like, yes, and Ruby is just like, stop, what's the matter with you?
Got bombs going on.
I love that character so much.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Like, too much of him would become very annoying. There is a sweet spot. And again, this movie, like every other thing we talk about it manages to find the sweet spot. There is a space in the middle of the sci-fi action adventure drama love story comedy for all of those things to meet and to have all of those interesting characters. But like, it is a narrow window they have to hit with this film. But I think the reason we talk about it still 25 years later is because they hit it. I think they just nailed a bullseye.
Yeah, and the thing is, like,
acting, directing, musically, like cinematography, editing, all of it just kind of.
And this is why things like this very rarely actually get made or at least work. Like, because just, you were just talking about like all the different genres that this blends and how everything has to fit into the right spot at the right time for it all to work. And you have to have all these people working on this film, from the director to the writer, the cast, the crew, like everybody bringing, everything they have into it. And it's so easy for something like this to go off the rails and to not work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why nowadays, in my opinion, there's far less risk involved in filmmaking. Because people are afraid to take these kind of risks because, well, what happens if it doesn't work? Then it's going to be.
Can I just say, watch Everything Everywhere All at Once? That movie swings for the fences.
Well, I'm so happy you finally said something like that, Steven.
Yeah. Like, I know I haven't mentioned that movie before now during the stream, but yeah.
But yeah, because it would have been so easy for this movie to end up a complete disaster. And the fact that it works at all is probably a miracle. And the fact that it works brilliantly, even more so.
Mm-hmm. But again, I think that starts with Luc Besson, probably, and his very unique vision that he had for this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And then getting everyone else to commit. And like Bruce Willis, we haven't talked that much about him. He's ostensibly the star of the movie. Let's make sure he gets his due, right? I think it starts with Bruce. This whole movie is ridiculous. But if this guy doesn't believe the world he lives in, none of us can go there with him.
Yeah. And obviously there's been some sadness regarding Bruce Willis of late, that, his health and all that. And I think it just made me appreciate even more when I was going back to watch this. Like, I really feel like it sounds strange to say for such a famous movie star, but I really do feel like Bruce Willis has in some way been underrated for a lot of his career.
He's a good actor. He is.
Yeah.
I don't think he's phenomenal, but I think he's very good, and he's great in this.
Yeah.
And I might end up eating my words because the more I think about it, the more I'm like, no, actually, he's pretty freaking great, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, like, anybody doubts that, I always say, watch 12 Monkeys, which is a, really far out there for him. And, but yeah, it's just, and I'm not just talking about like, I think he's actually a phenomenal actor and can do a wide range of things, but also like, if you look at him, he doesn't necessarily look like the guy that you'd pick out of a lineup for, being like a top action star.
Right, action hero.
Yeah, and the fact that
with that receding hairline, he's got the same hairline I do.
And the fact that he, that he was that and so much more throughout his career, it's just, you see him in a movie and you feel safe because, like, this is a Bruce Willis movie. He's going to take me through this. He's going to have the quippy one-liners. He's going to kick a lot of butt, and I'm going to believe him. And that's of monumental importance in this film because, as we've said over and over, so much of this film is so outlandish and bizarre, but Bruce Willis, that's
he's very grounding.
Yeah.
I also love that Bruce Willis, ostensibly our protagonist, and our main antagonist, played by Gary Oldman, never actually share the screen. They are in a scene together where he walks off the screen and a split second later Zorg walks on the screen. Seriously, like 3 frames later. There might be 3 frames where his ankle is still in the shot or something. But they never actually share the screen. Which is crazy because that is not how you write a movie.
Yeah, it's...
for those of you that are just listening, I threw up air quotes.
And I think I've heard you mention that before. Because I think we actually did fit in like 10 minutes of conversation about the movie for that other stream.
Yeah, I think you and Nessie talked about it, and I said something about it in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, and that also makes you wonder, like, who would you place as the actual protagonist of this film? Is it Corbin or is it Lilu?
I mean, yeah, kind of both are, but Lilu is almost the MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Really, the stones are the MacGuffin, but he being the sort of 5th part of that. But we could call her a co-tagonist.
Yeah, so she and Zord actually do, share a moment together. So there's that. And like, I like how consumed Zord is with, like, there's no reason once he believes he's gotten the stones, and then he still proceeds to try and blow her away with his big gun because, he doesn't really need to at that point. But that's just because he's so maniacal and, like, I've got
somebody who's studied military, read The Art of War and all that, you never leave a guarded fort to your rear.
Okay, wow.
Because she could still do something to intervene. So yeah, I'd also machine gun Mila Jovovich. If I was Zorg.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, that's brutal, Steve.
Yeah, what can I say? I'm bloodthirsty. Anybody that plays D&D with me knows that I can be quite.
But no, it is so great when, like, they narrowly miss each other, as the bomb's about to go off, and then he thinks he safely disarmed it, and then I love that
the other guys with his ship.
And I love the other alien then activates his bomb with has an exact countdown of 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no. Boom. And it's funny because I remember watching this movie and I wasn't exactly sure like how far into the movie this was. I was like, do we still have like, a couple more acts to go with this? And then, he gets blown up. I'm like, oh, never mind.
Right.
I guess we're getting close to the end.
Getting pretty close at that point.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure if there's anything else that I just have to say about this movie. We're 10-ish minutes from the end. And chatters, if there's something that hasn't been brought up or something you'd like us to expand upon, let us know. But this is about your last chance to say what you want to say, ask us what you want to ask us.
Just something I don't know. I don't remember what other movies or TV shows might have done this at the time to know whether this was groundbreaking or not. But the President of the United States
I was just thinking of him, Tommy Lister Jr.
Yeah, so the fact that you had a black man as President of the United States, like I said, because I know, a couple of years after that we had 24, did it. But I don't remember if there was anything before this or not. Well, what year was that? Oh God, what Deep Impact did it too? But I don't remember when that came out.
Deep Impact, same year as Armageddon.
Yeah,
it's right around this time.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was cool, and then I really liked the military commander who is through most of the film, because he's actually an actor who was in Blade Runner.
Brian James.
Yeah, but he just seems really goofy for most of this movie. I love the fact that Bruce Willis shoves them into the freezer
and then brings them out, takes the thing, and closes it again.
It's like, and then you leave the scene like, are they going to be okay?
I also kind of love the scene where David and Lilu are trying to check into the flight to Floston Paradise, and then Corbin Dallas shows up, and then is it Zorg's underling or is it the Mangalores who come next?
The Mangalores are first.
The Mangalores are first,
and then he keeps like changing back and forth
to take the takeoff. But like that poor lady at the ticket counter has met 4 different Corbin Dallases that day. Yeah. Okay. Fifth Element 97, Deep Impact 98. Got you.
So who knows? This might have been the first. I don't remember seeing anything before that.
I couldn't tell you for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Which is pretty sad in of itself. If 1997 was the first time we conceived of the possibility that there could be, an African American.
They didn't get a Sidney Poitier or a oh God, his name was just in my brain, Morgan Freeman. Like they did not get that type of actor for this role either. They got a guy who looks more like he might be in a prison movie or a war movie. He's a big, muscly guy, and he's got a speech pattern that is not, shall we say, posh.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I think he's great in the role.
Oh, he had great comic timing throughout when the one guy's like, oh, where did he learn to negotiate? And then the president goes, I wonder.
Yeah. The Zorg number 2 guy was played by a great British musician called Tricky. I did not know that he was a musician. His funny role, does a great job in the role. Yeah, cool. I learned something today about a movie I already knew quite a lot about. Thank you, Glenn, for sharing that insight. What else? What else we got, John?
Oh,
I actually hate the ending of this movie. That freeze frame mid makeout in the like freeze frame ending, not great anyway, but I don't know. Don't love the actual like final shot of this film, but I've never made a movie, so I can't complain too much. And the rest of it is so great that I forget even that's how it ends until I get there.
Well, it's like, the rest of the movie is this big, wild space opera, and then you've got, an ending that's more in the style of like a romantic comedy or something. But I don't know. It's I don't dislike it, but I can see what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Obviously, I don't love it, but God, Taker. Okay. I don't know what else to say. Just I put it on the screen. I'm not reading it out loud, but funny. But again, like I have often said there's no such thing as a perfect film, and I could nitpick this. It's been long enough. Like I said, I did not manage to fit in a rewatch this week. I had too much else going on, like just too much else going on, and I'm sure if I wanted to pick it apart, I could, but it's so much fun. It's so daring in what it's trying to do. It's pushing the boundaries of the medium at the time.
Yeah.
That I really appreciate it for the piece of art that it is.
Yeah, and it's still one of the most like what's the word I'm looking for? It still feels like one of the most original science fiction films ever made, and it's just wonderfully its own thing. Because, like I said, I don't know of many other movies like this.
And yeah, there are not very many movies like this,
and I think, well, that's also in addition to being brilliantly made, that's also the advantage of turning into like a cult favorite, because if you're a big blockbuster bonanza, then you're probably not as freakishly weird as this movie is, but also when you're enormously successful, you have a lot of imitators. And the advantage of a movie that underperforms and is only seen by a smaller amount of people is that you don't necessarily get that. So then years later, you can point to something like this and say it's one of a kind.
Totally with you. Like this is, even 25 years later, still a very, very unique film to have been made.
Yeah.
There is not really anything like it in the past 25 years. There have been other films that took big swings. There's nothing like this in that there is nothing that feels like The Fifth Element. There are other filmmakers who have taken big chances and pushed the medium forward themselves.
And that's the thing. Like, that's what you want. You don't want something else that's like.
Yeah, we don't want The Fifth Element too.
Yeah, you want filmmakers to take enormous swings and do something incredibly original.
Right.
And I know, Stephen, you don't have to say it.
I know I don't. But yeah, like camera movement and lighting and storytelling. We're all here because we love that. We're having this conversation because we love that. And we've all absorbed enough of that we understand the vocabulary of camera movement. Maybe not like the technical terms, but we understand the sort of storytelling vocabulary of what a fisheye lens can mean or what a push-in close-up can do. You know, like those are established because they've been used in storytelling for such a long time. And Luc Besson in this film knows that we know that, plays with those expectations, tries new things, and the movie is really, really unique because of it. That's Absolutely. My final thought, is that like this relies on the audience knowing the visual and sort of like theoretical vocabulary of storytelling and movie making, and using that to subvert your expectations or to color outside the lines in a really interesting way. John, your final thoughts.
My final thought is that I remember not being super eager about watching this when you all decided this on the watch party, and I was like, oh, fine, we'll do it. Because I remember I'd been orchestrating a bunch of watch parties where it was like, I want to do this movie, I want to do this movie. And then Steven's like, we should do The Fifth Element. And I'm like, okay, to avoid being a tyrannical dictator, I guess.
Yeah, right. Got to relinquish control a little bit, right? Keep the peasantry happy.
So we watched it, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. And my 2 subsequent viewings have just increased my appreciation for it. And I love how bizarre the movie is. And I mean, just look at the picture you got in your background, that like their costume designs and makeup, and it's just so wonderfully weird.
Yeah, she knows it's a multi-pass.
So yeah, I really, you know, the stuff I love most is when filmmakers try really audacious, out there stuff, and this absolutely ticks that box.
Love you, buddy. William. Happy to talk about it.
Yeah, so I'm just glad that you, let's be honest, forced me to watch the movie, and
I'm forcing you to watch another one. Speaking of, you know what, John? It's been a great stream. Let's just wrap it up here, okay?
Okay.
I would be retreading the same ground if I tried to talk about anything else. So join us here next week. Hopefully Nessie will be back. Hopefully John will be here. But somebody who absolutely will be here is this guy, because he told me earlier this stream. William will be here next week to join us to talk about the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which is a masterpiece. I'm just going to spoil it now and tell you it is my favorite movie that I've seen in years. I think it cracked my top 5 straight out of the gate. We'll see where it settles in time. It might drop back down, but like, I'm seriously considering it top 5 all-time movie. Having seen it 2 weeks ago. I've seen it 3 times, though. It's extremely, extremely good. Please go watch it. Please join us next week to talk about it. Yeah. John, any last words? Anything? I'm sorry, that really did not come out right. Any last words, John?
Well, you know, yeah, I'd like to get just one thing out before I go.
Yes.
No. Just, I think I will be starting back up with my channel soon. And if Blue Lemons is up for it, I think the first thing we do will probably be the film The Northman. So for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a weird movie, but we both loved it very much. So do check it out if you have the time.
I will watch it before you do a stream on it.
Okay.
and unfortunately, Blue Lemons is not here right now. She was in the chat earlier, but her dog got sick. So when Trish, we know you're out at the vet right now. Probably, we love you. We hope your little buddy is better soon.
Yeah, I will entice you guys with the movie by saying that it starts off very much in the vein of Conan the Barbarian, and then completely goes off the rails into a completely different territory. So,
well, Cassie is certainly excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she does not go out of her way to watch new movies often. Watch The Northman, watch Everything Everywhere All at Once. Yeah. And we'll see you guys next week for that conversation. I cannot wait to talk about nihilism, existentialism, enlightenment, absurdism, the nature of the universe, the structure of the universe. I just want y'all to see what I see and feel what I feel with this movie. It like really did get inside every crack of my brain. And I hope, John, I hope you can have a similar experience with it. I think you're going to love it as an editor. I think you might go, how did they make this?
Well, we'll see.
Mwah. All right, y'all. So that's it. Thanks to everyone who was here live and made the chat so great this week. We had a blast. Love you guys. Join us next week for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm not sure what's after that, but we got some good nerdy stuff coming. Okay. Thanks, Alex. I'm not sure. You're making me laugh anyway. But yeah, so I hope to see everyone next week. Join our Slack group if you want to. Yeah, that's it. So for John Webster, I'm Stephen Stark, and we'll see you all next week. Until then, you know what it is. John, what is it?
Is peace and be excellent to each other.
Bye, y'all.